to do so. Yeah. But let's get to the topic at hand today. So earlier this week, we launched our final episode of 2021, at least a mainline episode, which is about being into classic menswear as an Asian American. That's more for me, and MJ and Jason, because Aldous is not Asian American; he is Asian Canadian. So
And we
yeah,
hate
that's
him.
kind of we fucking fuck Aldous, dude. Seriously. Um, but yeah, so I thought we'd kind of continue this today. We've got Kyoshi here as well. And of course, if you guys have any questions about it, if you guys have any insight, I don't know what the Asian demographic of this is, of the stream is. But yeah, feel free to ask questions or have any points to talk about. But I mean, again, to kind of recap, we talked about what it meant to kind of craft an identity as Asian Americans, being into classic menswear, because the reason I brought it up is because I guess, yes, Cool Cutter, Canada is North America, so technically we could call it like America geographically, not nationality.
But deep in your
Um,
heart, you,
you know what we meant.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
But again,
even all just said it, so it's like you have to take his
yeah.
word for it.
But again, the main thing that kind of spurred this idea was like, um, I always kind of felt weird being into classic menswear, despite all of the Asian influence. And I think over time I kind of realized it's because, oh yeah, well, a lot of the big players of menswear that are Asian come from the like homeland, or like the native countries of like Japan, Hong Kong, China, etc. There's never too much, representation, shall we say, or even participation of Asian Americans or people living in immigrants in Western countries. And so that's kind of what we kind of talked about. Of course, we went over a lot of things, always made some good points about how just because, there's a lot of history of, Native Asians being into menswear, again, because of imperialism and having, all of the, you know, they were making clothes cheaply for traveling businessmen, etc. It doesn't mean exactly that there's people who are as into it as we are, but it's still interesting to know because even then, like Japan, right? All of the major Asian inspo is usually Japanese dressers or it's Mark Cho, and by Japanese dressers, people in the industry. So that's kind of like what the podcast thing was about, and I thought we'd expand that on that today, and like just identity in general. So did we think about anything else that came up, or post mortem, Spencer, MJ, after?
Postmortem.
Yeah, like after the episode came out, like is there anything like that you think we kind of like not missed per se, but maybe we should have expanded on?
I don't think so. I'll just would probably speak on this more. I think we hit everything pretty well. I mean, at least for me, I said all that I had to say.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of tough because I thought I did have some stuff, but like so. One thing that I thought of too, and this is probably good for Jason and Kiyoshi to chime in as well after I share this anecdote, is I talked to Natty Adams about this, and Nathaniel Adams, the writer of the book I Am Dandy, which he made along with photographer Rose Callahan, really good book, and We Are Dandy as well. I own both. Um, Natty is half Indian and half white. And I did ask him, I kind of, a lot of people already knew that I talked to, kind of included them in the essay, like I mentioned, like Benton from SF, talk about Derek of Die Workwear, etc. But I added Natty in because, he's kind of like more on the whole documentarian side about like, he literally wrote a book about people who identify or do not identify as dandies, but who are still stylish people from all walks of life. And I asked him, kind of randomly like, hey, like just want to make sure like what your ethnicity is because I didn't want to, some people have different ideas about like what is Asian or not, etc. And we chatted a little bit about identity, and to him it's not something that he kind of thought about as someone who is not just a half Asian, not saying only Asian, because there's a lot of articles out there about the even bigger identity crisis that half Asians have in the diaspora, the diaspora, because of the levels of how white passing they are, right? And so not only do you not fit in with you don't really fit in with anybody, kind of, right? Because maybe not anybody, but you kind of don't fit into your own ethnic group or friends. And of course, it depends on person to person. But Natty would say that he never really thought about it. He always thought of himself as just more of like an American who happens to have this background. And I kind of found it similar to our friend Adam, who is half Chinese and half white. And yeah, it doesn't really come up for them as much until maybe later on in life. I think Adam is kind of, if you know him in real life, as MJ and I do, he likes to eat like authentic Asian food to kind of as a connection to his past there. Despite again not always having like Asian friends. But yeah, I think that's interesting because it's such a contrast to how MJ and I felt about and Jason too a little bit about like the whole Swagapino culture, right? Because there is this when I guess maybe when you're full Asian or depending on what type of Asian, there is like this big push for community and like to like not stand out as opposed to like as Natty and Adam said, like when you're kind of ostracized by your own community, you're like, okay, well that's fine. But for us, it's still like, oh, do we still want to be the right kind of Filipino? So that I just thought that anecdote was interesting, and I know Kiyoshi had some thoughts too about being half Asian as well, and I'm sure I don't know if you want to chime in now, Kiyoshi, about that, but I mean, yeah, I'm interested to hearing about being half Asian and how maybe your hobbies or events were played into that aspect of it.
Yeah, let me find my mic 1 second.
Oh, yeah, no worries. I can vamp for a little bit more. David says how light your skin is, how you talk can make a big difference. Oh, absolutely. I think what happens with again, I don't want to make any assumptions about like Asian culture. Some people don't like being called Asians or like being called mixed Asian or half Asian. But of course, yeah, how white passing you are and how ingrained in the culture you are really again depends because I think I can only really talk about like being Filipino because like and there's a big push to like kind of stick together, but like I think when you're more mixed Asian, you don't really have that. I don't know. Kiyoshi, go ahead.
Yeah, so for reference, my mom immigrated from Okinawa, Japan, and my dad is from Puerto Rico. So it's kind of weird. I think it would be one thing to have, say, one non-white background and one white background. But in my case, it's two non-white backgrounds together. And I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. So, it's like one of those things where I didn't have just one identity that was different. I had two simultaneously. And I think that was kind of, but the one I was recognized more for because of, I guess you could say, like identifying physical traits would be Asian, especially as a kid. Me and my brother both definitely looked like little Asian kids. We did not look like more mixed.
Sure.
I would say now we look a lot more mixed as we're older. But back then, as a kid, it's definitely like being in a predominantly white suburb at the time. Interesting being like one of like a handful of Asian kids like in your middle school, let's say. Like I'm talking like 2 or 3.
And you went to public school or did you do
Public
SDA?
school, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so I was in public school, and it was really because others saw me as Asian that became like the predominant ethnicity I saw myself as. I think for a lot of reasons. And it wasn't like we ate more Asian food at home than we ate Puerto Rican food or whatever, or like, hamburgers. So it was just kind of this identity that was kind of, I was like given. But later on, when you get to college and, post college, like what you're trying to like, who am I really? It kind of grew into a little bit of like imposterness because even though I was seen as Asian, like I didn't feel like I had any like really tight connections. Like I didn't know really any other Asian people, let alone Japanese people. I didn't speak or write Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't super into
Your
Japanese
parents didn't push
culture.
you. Your parents didn't push you anything for this kind of stuff.
No. In fact, because both my parents, I guess you could say immigrated, even though my dad was technically a citizen, but for them, English was the second language for both of them. So
Interesting. Okay.
they did not raise my brother and I to speak Spanish or Japanese. So it was just like, you just need to know English, which being trilingual would have been super awesome, but did not happen. Because as people who were ESL, they saw English as like the thing you need to know to assimilate and to fit in and to succeed, academically and culturally and socially. So I think in that aspect, that mentality to me led to, again, an idea of like downplaying the Asianness and upplaying how to fit in, which, for lack of better terms, it was more white, right? It's like you take on the idea of like, oh, I want to play these sports, or I want to watch this type of media, or listen to this type of music.
Sure.
And that also translates, of course, to how you dress. And I feel like that is the reason why I got into menswear. The reason why I got into menswear was because I was working a political job, and frankly, I worked for the Republicans. There is a way that Republicans dress
Yes.
politically. And so even that was about fitting in with that predominantly white crowd. And it really wasn't until I left that job and still enjoying clothing that I started to think more about clothing and designers and fashion from a different lens of not just assimilation, but instead of experimentation and general just enthusiasm and interest and love of other elements beyond needing to fit in. And I feel like needing to fit in is the easiest way for guys to enter clothing, whether it be fitting in at work or fitting in with your friends or fitting in with, being more attractive for dating or whatever, right? There's a reason why you want to dress, and the rules-based system that generally most tailoring hashtag menswear tends to follow makes that an attractive and easy way to go. And I feel like that's definitely why I think was drawn to it at the beginning, but it's also become a thing that I've tried to push away from currently. Because at some point you begin to realize that fitting in isn't as important as learning about who you are as a person and deciding who you actually want to be. So that's, and part of that is like, I feel like, my Asian culture, part of that is, my Latino culture, and trying to say, I've ignored this part of me for nearing, 4 decades or 3 decades. Like, I should explore those parts and see what elements of those that I enjoy and want to incorporate, whether that be in, media or music or food or dress. And there's some parts that, you'll still never really see me wearing a kimono. Like, like even I feel weird wearing one. And I have like my stuff I've gotten from like my grandparents that I inherited, and I wear it and I'm like, this is interesting, but it's not really me. So it's kind of weird to even see like actual Asian stuff, actual Japanese stuff that I have an extremely close, tied to, that I'm just not really into. Whereas, I've got like one of my grandpa's baseball hats from when he was in the Air Force, and I enjoy the hell out of that thing because I'm like, I grew up wearing baseball hats as a kid. and that's actually really enjoyable for me. So, yeah, I think it's not so much like the Asianness that I had grown up with. It was more the Asianness I ignored.
Interesting. That's because, like you said, like you didn't have a lot. Did you have a lot of Asian friends at all? Like, did you ever
I
feel a
had one.
camaraderie?
I
One,
had
okay,
one.
interesting.
Yeah, one in my high school class.
Well, that's really like there's something interesting about growing up around people and whether or not you are in contact or even are close to people of your own like race. And of course, I don't know if I'm sure it doesn't cross Spencer's mind that being around white people or whatever. I mean, like even yesterday we had Friendsgiving with our friend Jay, hosted by our friend Jay,
Yep.
and a lot of like the friends from like the people from his high school, other than like other than Aaron, right? They're all white, and so it's as a contrast, for me, I said this on the pod, like being in not just being in Southern California where it's pretty diverse, but being in the San Gabriel Valley where it's predominantly Latino and Asian, it makes the whole thing about growing up very interesting, especially when it's even further fractured down. So I'm not sure if we said this on the pod, but like I think MJ's school has a higher Filipino um, population in his high school, his academy because it's K through 12, compared to say mine. Mine was predominantly more Chinese and Korean, and my particular class had like okay, there's like 60 people, but like it'd be like 10 of them are Chinese, 10 of them are Korean, 10 of them are white, 15 of them are Latino, and then or Latinx, and then there's like 4 Filipinos. And so being further fractured into that is like it makes you kind of, at least for me, kind of more conscious of what it means to be Filipino, because like you kind of notice what the differences are between like a Chinese person versus a Filipino versus a Korean, especially, and might be an SDA thing, I'm sure other churches have this too, but our churches are also split into different like ethnic backgrounds. Like there's a Filipino church. There's like 2 Filipino churches in Glendale. There's like a Chinese SDA church in LA. There's like 2 Korean churches. And then having those people kind of like split off into those groups, because a lot of people like they grew up in that church and then they would go to my high school, they would still kind of stick with each other. So it's again there's like this, I don't say it's inherently malicious, but it's still like, okay, what do I gotta do? Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's self-segregating. And then it's like, again, you could either, I guess I never thought about like, kind of rejecting it because of just how diverse it was, because there wasn't like a neutral kind of place in my high school. Like there wasn't like the white population was so small and they were kind of just so like milk toast or bland. Like they didn't really do anything, so there wasn't really any kind of identity. And of course, the idea of identity could like mean a lot of different things, right? Is it like what you're into? Is it your ethnic background? Like what does that mean? Like of course, that's so nebulous. But it's like when you're young, there's like all you can do is think about like what are the easiest commonalities to kind of gravitate towards. And then, as we've discussed before on stream as well, and some podcasts, and even just us chatting outside of the stream, like college for me, going to the same denomination Christian college is like it's still the same thing. It's like it was like high school 2.0, because a lot of these people went to when you have the same denomination, you already self-segregated into ethnic groups, into like geographic groups, high school groups, church groups, etc. So it's like maybe this is why I'm so hyper aware of like what makes someone a part of a group, like what starter packs there are, what patterns there are, because of how it just kind of just happens. And as I said on the pod, and we talked about this with MJ and Jason about like the whole like Swagapino thing. Like I really do feel, as I was writing the essay, like Swagapino is a way to kind of give Filipinos like some kind of external identity that was silly but serious, that kind of incorporated like these I don't know about traditional Filipino values, but like, family and machismo, etc., camaraderie, like it's all there. But there was also a certain type of person that was a swagapino. And so, not having that was always something I was aware of. Like MJ, did you, or even Jason too, like did you, I don't know if I was ever jealous of being swagapino, but like I know that I wasn't a swagapino. You know what I mean? Like, did that ever like in your mind ever like come up in terms of like identity or anything?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, the people I was around were like, even if they were, quote unquote, swagapino, it wasn't like that big of a deal, and like it wasn't that big of a deal in high school and stuff like that. For me, I was like friends with them already before like the whole like
The whole thing
Tumblr
came out,
thing,
yeah.
because that's a good uh that's a good place for me to say that, since I did go to a SDA academy, I knew most of my friends like for most of the time there, like K through 12, so it was fine, like we were just regular friends before that.
Sure. What about you, Jason? I mean, did you have? I mean, forgive me if we covered this in the pottery, but like, did you see a lot of other Filipinos or Asians?
I mean, I didn't. Growing up, I didn't see like any.
Okay.
But like, I always like I remember being on like Tumblr or like Pinterest,
Yeah.
and like seeing them, like, man, those guys look cool, right? Because of the confidence, really.
Yes.
I
Okay.
mean,
Yeah.
looking at it now, like, I would never wear any of what I would never want to be a part of that, right? But like at the time, I was like, man, those guys, they have confidence, they're cool, and there was always this weird thing with myself being Filipino, but like, not at the same time, because I was never taught anything the Philippines. Right. I didn't eat Filipino food. My dad didn't like speak about being Filipino.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was a government form thing. Like when the government handed me a piece of paper, I would write Asian on it, you know, and that's
that was the extent. That was the extent of it.
So it was like, wow, these people are like cool, and they're like, they're Filipino, and it's like I am, but then I had this inner feeling of like, no, I'm not.
Well, that's really interesting because like, okay, so like, there's a lot of with ethnic identity. Again, maybe I don't know, Spencer, correct me if I'm wrong here, probably, but I feel like you don't compare yourself to like other white people.
No,
it's the same, because
that's not something that no.
Okay, the reason why I did this is like, did you ever like? I know people like compare themselves to other families and everything, but like I always thought that my family, by virtue of not just being SDA, but kind of in this weird. Every family's different, obviously, but like one big thing about being Filipino is like you always have like a kuya, right? Which is like a older brother, older sibling, someone that you kind of like, someone who acts as an older brother, right? Like someone like kind of like a mentor. There's always like an older cousin or something like that. There's always like an uncle or something that that kind of is that person for you. Again, it's kind of like a patriarchal culture. Obviously, there's also a matriarchal side to being Filipino. Like you always have like your lola and high regard, like the women of the family. But there's also again a lot of machismo, masculine energy with being Filipino. And the thing is, I don't know what it is about like that, but like my family, we didn't really not that we didn't have that, but I had no older male other than like my dad. Male like role models, maybe my grandpa, but of course they're not the same thing as a kuya. They're like your elders, right? Mm-hmm. So there wasn't like that cool like like older brother energy in it, and which seemed so important to being Filipino. And the reason I really just like to menswear is like a lot of that idea. I thankfully didn't get sucked into the whole like, oh, Alpha M is my dad kind of a thing that most guys get into.
What if you showed up on his show, like like an alternate timeline?
Oh man, yeah, like my little like I never had anybody kind of a thing. Yeah. But like my family is very interesting because like
instead of what was that? What did you do? Instead of Gentleman Gazette, you did.
Yeah, it was the other one. Yeah. Oh, quick shout out to Minecraft Kid 888. What's up? Thank you for joining in. I would love it. At first I thought it was like a random person because my boy Ethan. So wow, I guess this guy really is he knows who we are. Unless he's just reading off names on our underneath our stuff. But the thing I'm trying to say is like, you know, when my Filipino family, there's still a lot of like differences between me and a typical Filipino family. I know, of course, compared to Jason, and we're probably more similar, but like, you know, I don't have a lot of cousins, if at all.
I mean,
My
something I was gonna bring up, and I can't remember if we talked about this on the podcast, but something that
Yeah,
you
yeah.
mentioned to me before is because you are SDA, you didn't grow up eating a whole lot of traditional like Filipino food and stuff like that because it's
Yes.
not kosher, I guess.
Yeah, I know exactly. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of like,
I'll dispute that, but yeah.
but I think the difference is too is like, you know, it just kind of depends where your parents. I think like, you know, Kiyoshi had the same kind of idea where they, you know, his parents or his thing was like, you know, more for lack of a better term, like conformity, right? Like my parents understand Tagalog. My dad can speak it. My mom can kind of speak it, but they never bothered teaching me. Even my grandparents, who I spent a lot of time with, never really pushed for it for anything, you know? And it wasn't a whole like keep your head down kind of a thing. I think it was just like, you know, maybe at that time in the 90s, it's more like trying to push the whole color blind, like that whole thing, like, you know, oh, you're just a regular kid, right? Like you don't need to learn anything else because you're just like, but the thing
Yeah,
is,
I'm just a
is
kid and
that,
life is a nightmare.
but the like, right, like that, and that's like, that's one aspect. Like it's supposed to be positive, but then when your whole like friend identity or like an ethnic culture in the States, in the diaspora, is like built on that, it's like you can't identify with it, right? And so that brings you out like, you know, like what kind of Filipino like are you? And of course that added with the, you know, MJ has cousins around his age. I don't have anybody like that. There wasn't any like kuya or even like uncle or anything. Like all my uncles are my grandparents' siblings, so they're technically great uncles, but you know, like that's just how it was. So I've always, again, to tie it back, I've always been kind of hyper aware of like, okay, like, am I doing that? Like, not that I'm doing this correctly, but like, I've always been like, not abnormal, but just kind of like outside the norm, I guess, you know? And then, of course, making friends later on who had that kind of background where, again, like Swagapinos, where, you know, there's like a look to it, there's a way you talk, there's like, you know, there's again, like talking to different girls kind of a thing. There was like that whole, again, masculine energy that like, dressing up just doesn't really fit into that. Like they wore ties, but it was like tie with a cardigan and a snapback, and then you do like with your like your fake glasses, your nerd glasses.
Yeah,
And so like as I like got into it, I was just more and more aware like the style that I had, like the dressing up, the suit thing that I had was just different than everybody else's, and I was like, you know,
Yeah, you're built different.
yeah, but it's like there was no one like it there, right? Like I can't. Even now we've talked about this in the Discord too. Where like again, like all the big menswear personalities are like the same white people, or if they're person of color, it's the same person of color, and they're also like not like a second gen or like, you know, or immigrants in a sense, right? Like they're I guess they are immigrants. I guess Mark Cho technically immigrates. Well, I think he's a Hong Kong citizen technically, so he just goes around. But like, you know, it's just a little bit different. And as like, you know, we said earlier up in the stream too, where it's like people kind of follow what they see, and it's just tough when you don't see it. You know, no one's ever explicitly said, well, I can't do that. That's not an Asian thing to do, or that's not a Filipino thing to do. But there's just no proof for it, right? It's like, I think at the end of the day, right, like representation in pop culture is so important, even if you don't vocalize it. Like, I don't know, I could think of how, I think there was like a Stan Lee thing where like he was like reflecting on Spider-Man. He's like, even though Spider-Man wasn't intended, you know, like he's a white dude, Peter Parker was written as a white dude, but like compared to the other Marvel heroes at the time, he was the only one who was like in a full costume. So technically, kids could think of themselves as like Spider-Man easier than they could think of themselves as like Thor or like Iron Man, who has like, you know, or the Hulk or something like that, right? So
nobody can think of themselves as the Hulk. That's the thing.
You don't want to be angry.
I just want to be green.
I just want to be green.
But yeah, I mean, I was always kind of just conscious of like, you know, not being like the right type of like Filipino, and that extends to so many other things other than just menswear. You know, like there's just so, I don't know, there's like a camaraderie behind it. You know, I think MJ has more typical Filipino friends than I do. I mean,
Yeah.
At least that you know of, right? Even your coworkers in your at Uniqlo are like more again stereotypically Filipino than like our friends like Taylor and Scott, right? Like,
Yeah. Oh, I'll also go back a little bit and
mhm.
correct Ethan that I'm the kuya, so that's why I do have like uh older cousins that are that I call kuya, but I'm the like the original of like my immediate family. So
Did you ever look up to anybody like that in that way?
um maybe Uncle Mont is the closest because he's like
Okay.
the cool uncle, you know.
Right.
Um,
Man, see, I never had that.
but yeah, that's
I I did
that's
I did
close.
have one. His name was Shane, and I think I'm not sure if everyone here is no. I don't think Spencer met Shane. I know MJ has,
Oh, Shane
but like,
Dawson?
yeah. But Shane to
Oh
me
no.
was like this really like he was like I don't know, like 4 years older than me most, maybe even just 3. But he was typical like in my head like Filipino guy, like I don't know if he identified as Swagapino, but like he had like the spiked hair a little bit, puka shell like necklace, very he worked out a lot, really good with the girls. He would like dress, he would wear like tank tops and like chinos and boat shoes when he was like not at church, and then when he was at church, he would wear like like the black suit, the like dark shirt, and then like a matching dark tie. That kind of like again, like I mean, I know a lot of this sounds kind of basic, but like like to Filipinos, like it was like that guy, and he was kind of like I was like I'd never be as cool as this dude, like I didn't see him a lot, so maybe that added to like the mythos of Shane a little bit, added to his like not like a legend, but like like he was like this dude who would always kind of just show up whenever and like kind of just be cool and always had stories, and he had this clique of people that sometimes I would hang out with. He had his cousins, and he was born in the Philippines, but he came here when he was younger. And again, there's this thing about like recent immigrants that have a lot more camaraderie, because obviously when you move here, you need like a network, you need like a fallback, right? Like there's church stuff, and then there's like extended family, as opposed to people who have been here who don't really do that. They kind of act as the home base, but again, as I said, like a lot of people, my whole family never really had younger kids, and so we didn't really have that kind of network, but he did. And so I remember like when I would hang out with this dude, it was like, whoa, this guy is so cool,
It's
and
cool.
I think my friend my friend Vincent also kind of fit in there, because he didn't grow up SDA. His mom converted from Catholicism, and so he kind of, and Catholicism is bigger with the Philippines. I mean, it's like 98% Catholic or whatever the whole country is, right? And so um he had this whole network of like Filipino people that he would hang out with, and also he went to a public school, and so I've always had this whole like again this idea like that I was not exactly like the right kind of Filipino. I was like Filipino in ethnicity, and I had like some of the basic stuff, but like I never like felt super Filipino. So maybe that made it easier for me to kind of get into certain stuff. And I'm sure my mom did too, as I said on the podcast, right? Like my mom idealized being preppy, even though she's not a WASP. And we've had a whole stream about like how it's easy for POCs to get into Ivy clothing because it like they're straight up not white, right? So it doesn't like you don't get those
Straight
whole
up.
like college Republican vibes.
Hmm.
And so I guess it was easy for her. And I guess, as I haven't talked to my mom about the episode, and she never listened to it. She doesn't listen to the pod or read my essays. She said that they're too long, which is a common complaint of a lot of people.
That's the
But
point.
yeah, that's the real thing.
You have a
But
lot
it's
to
like,
say.
but it's like, even she was like, like, yeah, like I just knew what I liked and I did it. Like, I mean, what's the worst? There's no context, right? Like, she grew up in Montebello, California, East LA, like 20 minutes from downtown, and in the 70s and 80s. And so it's like, what's the point? And I feel like I love that. Like, I feel like it kind of informed how I am today, where I'm like, like, nothing really like matters, and I guess, now it's cool to think about like, being Filipino. And I did also think about this like when my first girlfriend was Filipino, who was Catholic and grew up in the Philippines until she was like 5 years old, and she moved here, and she had a whole bunch of Filipino friends and Filipino cousins. And so like again, like even though I was dating her, like I was like, whoa, this is so was a culture shock for me. And plus, they're eating like crab and lobster. I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? But like, you know, this idea that you can kind of just be into something without there being precedent for it is, I guess, a byproduct of that upbringing. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's kind of similar to kind of, I guess not really similar to Kyoshi. I mean, I feel like the whole rule thing is a little bit different. Like, I didn't get into it for the rule aspect of it. That was also kind of a byproduct where like it was easy for me to get into it because of the rules, not that I got into it because the rules were attractive to me. And I also know as a second gen, I'm not tied to tradition as much. Because as we said in the podcast, right, a lot of like more recent immigrants, first gens, etc., tend to be more traditional, or they like tradition. And most of the guys that are our age and that are Asian that we've met that like menswear in Southern California tend to lean more on the fact that they are recent immigrant, like they weren't born here, they're first generation Asian Americans. Like that's a very interesting aspect to kind of think about, because it's like they find a lot in common with like the whole, I don't know if it's idealizing menswear and like that whole culture. I'm sure it is, right? Like, I mean, a lot of them like smoke cigars and, you know, like watches, and they like the whole aspect, as opposed to like kind of, you know, approaching it from like a more costuming standpoint. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I never felt, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is everything felt fair game because I already didn't feel super Filipino. So,
well, on
yeah.
the I don't know if we said this in the episode, but how like, at least for us, you and I, our parents were already kind of Americanized.
Yeah.
So it was like, so when we grew up, it just kind of kept going being American instead of like quote unquote Filipino. Obviously, you know, we still you know, certain things like seeing our grandparents and stuff like that exposed us to Filipino culture and stuff
Sure.
like that.
Yeah.
But like when we're not around like extended family and stuff, it's just like regular American
Yeah.
upbringing, I guess. Of course, like, you know, the minute things, take off your shoes in the house.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Rice cooker.
Well, even that, even then, I also felt like, you know, I know this is kind of like more about like what it means to be Asian in general, but it's like, even like sometimes I feel like I'm not there, and maybe this is a very, as I've talked to some other people, like this is a very privileged conversation, because the idea about like just being Asian, like what it means to be that, is like it's only a second gen issue, or
right.
if you're a first gen but younger, because when you're born in the home country and you've grown up in it, when you come here, like you're too focused on like surviving and assimilating and etc. But for us, where it's like, oh, you're called this and you look different, but you're also straight up American, it's like such a weird like push and pull to have. And even then, like compared to most of our other friends, I always felt like not Asian enough. And this is something we talk about in the Discord a lot, because there's some like, you know, I don't know where Mr. T is from. Maybe he's I can't remember. I'm sorry, but like
T?
we talk a lot about like, yeah, Asian and being, and we're in that whole Asian American group as well. And there's this idea, like, you know, again, when it comes to being Asian American, there's like a whole bunch of like stereotypes, right? Like anime and boba and everything, which is so surface level. But even then, like it just becomes like a thing to compare yourself to again, right? Like, even though these groups, and I wrote about this a little bit in the essay, where these groups are meant to be, it's like it's meant to be to foster camaraderie, but then it becomes about like that very basic, yeah, again, like it becomes about like rice cooker shoes off in the house, as opposed to like real questions about identity. And even then, even in these groups, like I never felt like super Asian in these groups too. And I don't know if that's also just because I'm into different things. You know, like when we go play, for example, when we play like trivia, like I don't know what it is, but like I can't bring Asians into it. Like there's just something, I don't know what it is about like a bar and playing trivia, and it's just so different. You know, like maybe they just don't see where they fit into it. I don't know if there's like a weird, like I guess trivia is kind of based on pop culture, and pop culture in America is predominantly white stuff, and especially because it's like nostalgic based trivia as
Yeah.
well, like
It's
you
like
know,
if you
so it's
didn't grow up with it, you wouldn't have known it, basically.
right. And I'm always on that thing of like, well, there's a chance you'll probably know it, you know? And so, but it's weird that people don't really give that a chance. And I always wonder that about like menswear, where it's like these people have these preconceptions about it. And I wonder like what that is about. Like, you know, again, when we have menswear events, I don't think I don't personally believe menswear is inherently malicious or gatekeeping or restrictive to people of color. But there is probably this unspoken rule about it that it is unspoken, like this unspoken aspect about it that it is kind of white, or at least just not easily for BIPOCs, right? And I know I wonder what it is that you can do to change that. You know, for like again, we can talk about this for like the last half hour or so before we close off with some video or whatever. But like, I
have a thought
wonder.
on that.
Yeah, go ahead, Kiyoshi. Yeah, jump in.
The thing is, like, I think in general it's hard to get a lot of people into menswear just
across the
in
board.
general.
Still,
like, I don't think that's
yeah.
a uniquely Asian thing. So,
Sure.
because for instance, like a lot of my friends are white, not into menswear.
Right. Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
And we come from very, I'd say, similar backgrounds. Otherwise we probably wouldn't be friends.
Yeah.
I think we mentioned that during in the episode.
I think that most people have into getting into menswear
Yep.
is more just around the lines of, I think people see it as there's a lot of things they don't know, aka the rules, and they assume it's extremely expensive or it is more money than they're willing to invest in it. So, and no one wants to go somewhere and feel poor.
Yes.
Or like they don't fit in comfortably financially in that place. Like I have friends who will not go to really nice fancy cocktail lounges, right? Because they don't feel comfortable being at a place that charges like $20 for a drink. And hey, I totally get that. That's a pretty unreasonable amount of money to pay for a drink. But that's just drinks. That's not even like, we're not talking like $1,000 jackets, So I feel like that is probably the greater barrier. Maybe you could find something to say like about how Asians value money, and
there's also the aspect
there might be some cultural aspect to that, but I don't really know enough about that because not around a lot of Asians. But yeah.
I mean that there's a whole idea too where people perceive that. I always like to think about how like a lot of people, like a lot of the richer Asians who come here tend to come from like more well-off families, and those tend to be, like more traditional, which kind of makes more sense. But then like when you look at like some of the other Asians, like again Filipinos, etc., like there's a lower income thing. There's a big income disparity between like Asian Americans, like within that particular group, and a lot of the people who like make the most money are people who have come here already with money, as opposed to people who have come here from kind of more middle or lower class backgrounds. So I do think it's true. There's probably a little bit of money involved, as financials in that aspect. But I don't know. I feel like there's a little bit of like there's something about the stuff that I've been into that it's like. And again, this could just be it most likely is more to do with like my more niche interests than it is to being like if these things are inherently not Asian. But like for a while, right? Like I'm sure Jason can talk about this too. But like punk music and alt music was like there's not a lot of Asian stuff. I mean, now there is, right? There's as like this again as when I talk about the Indiization, I guess, or as what's it called? As Nymphet alumni call it, the altification as an aesthetic, as a popular aesthetic to do that you can see on your Instagram Explore page, on Twitter. I feel like now it's much easier for Asians and people of color to be into alternative things as it was before, where like you didn't want to be different, right? Like I know like a lot of people didn't like the terms ABG and ABB because of how limiting they were in how they describe the Asian American experience, because like not everyone's an ABG, right? Like that's,
I wish.
like not. I mean that's my explore page. You know what I'm saying?
Just a world where
Yeah.
one man and everyone else is ABGs.
Yeah, everyone is a Vivian Tran and Kevin Lin and everything.
Kevin
But
Wynn.
but it's like, like again, back when we were like in high school, like that was like an easy way of putting it. Like you either were like, and I talked about this with Young Chomsky a long time ago, where like, yeah, a lot of young people like to like, again, categorize things, but there's just something interesting again about like, if you're not a person of color, or at least, it's for this person's conversation, Asian, there was like a huge thing like growing up about like what kind of Asian you are. And it's not just about like, oh, you're the nerd. It's like you're that kind of Asian, like, so like there's just so much like early YouTube culture was like, there was like a big explosion of like Asian creators who would like talk about like a type of Asian. Like there was Happy Slip. I'm surprised I guess I didn't talk about this on the podcast, but like Happy Slip would do like Filipino sketches. And she was like this, I don't know if she was a nurse. I mean, that's me being racist. But like,
Filipino must be a nurse, right?
Yeah.
Full-time content creator must be a nurse, because he
must be a nurse.
But like there was like this whole thing about like, like she would do characters based on her family and just reenact like social stuff. And then like same thing like this guy Kev Jumba, who, were like, he had, I'm not sure what his real last name was, but like, obviously like, they would have like these kind of like, non-Asian names. Like Kev Jumba is kind of like just kind of ambiguously silly, but they would talk about like, and like they would like vlog about the Asian experience, and or at the very least they were Asian and got clout for it, and at a certain point, like it became like, okay, like what kind of Asian you were, like, YouTuber Asian, because like there was like this kind of archetype for like these people who like would like kind of fight back behind, fight against the preconceptions, not just about Asians, but about like what your family expected of you. And so it's just so interesting to like kind of like, have all these archetypes and then still like not find, at least for me, not find that kind of person that you are, that you kind of fit into, and of course being SDA, it's already so fractured, and so it's such, you're in a bubble where you're all, you feel the need to kind of find this kind of group, and not having it, so it's like, I don't think it's crazy that like I started to think about stuff in this way, because there's literally like there's like billions of videos about like what kind of Asian dude you are, like the Fung Bros, Wong Fu Productions. Like there's literally, maybe we can watch some we'll watch like the Asian Bachelor video or something.
I don't want to again.
No, we'll watch the silly one, not the couple ones. You know what I mean? But yeah, what were we saying?
Do you think that like those Asian creatives or content creators, whatever, they probably felt the same way that you're describing? That's why they started making content like that.
Absolutely. I think
because it's like, right, if you put it out there, that's how you'll find people like you, and like that's how the community kind of grew over the internet.
Yeah, I mean, Jace, I know, we've talked about this a little about, and do you feel like the Asian influence in your life, and do you think that that this person that you are should be represented by Asians, like you can be Asian and be a Jason Sandagon of sorts,
Right. I feel that more now than I have in the past.
Okay.
Obviously, like being friends with you guys, has opened the door to like, me being able to sort of accept and work with and learn more about Filipino aspects of my life.
Yeah.
And so I definitely try to put that in a focus point, and like whether it be the brand, or whether it be just even at like Drake's and stuff, of just putting forward that idea of, hey, yeah, I'm like racially ambiguous, that's cool, you can still do all these things at the same time without feeling the need to fit into a specific, piece. Obviously, Asians in our kind of men's, few and far between.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's like, I think we did this with Connor in the Discord, right? Where he's like, when you don't see yourself represented anywhere, it's tough to get into something.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I could just sit here and be just some, let's be some brown guy in menswear, or I can be, a mixed Filipino guy in menswear.
Yeah, you can.
And one of them
own
is
that
more
identity.
helpful to. Yeah, one of them is more helpful
Yes.
to the greater whole.
Absolutely. I mean, because it's one of those things that too. Maybe it's a generational thing, right? Because like again, like we talk about how for people older than us, but for people older than us, like again, this whole idea about identity and what you identify is like, it's such a privileged conversation, or it's just something that old people just don't think about, right? And it's not to say that they're wrong for it, because they probably just want to be a normal person. But it's idealistic to think that, because I like you said, people need to see who they can be, right? Like,
right.
Yeah, you can have like the Justice League is cool, but it's even cooler when you have like a Filipino superhero. You don't. I mean, it's cool if you made Superman's Filipino, and of course you could write a another origin story where like he landed in fucking, I don't know, like Eagle Rock and became, in the 30s, and he saw some Filipino farmers back in those days, and became a Filipino alien, right, or whatever. But like, there's also like the idea like it's something that is for you is so. It's just
KFC
so cool.
is nice, but Jollibee, makes me feel good.
Yeah, it's like, it's not that you have to. It's not like you have to be Filipino all the time. Like I know a lot of people like, as they get older, like, again, no shade to them, like, I don't think that be overcorrect is a bad term, but like, they really like go full force in like, pushing that thing, and that's all power to them. But it's like, at least at that point, like they're trying to own that part of identity, because it is important to kind of, because I think there, even though there's a lot of like literature and a lot of people talking about this, at least with menswear, it's, again, like you said, few and far between. And it just sucks that, again, as I think about it, right, being colorblind isn't always helpful, because
exactly.
You need to see it, like again, like there's nothing wrong with like Derek, but like, of course, people who know more about him and read into it, like they know that he's Asian, but like other people don't know that. And like I wonder out there, someone who's like, well, like what if they wanted to be like a Bruce Boyer type or a Derek type, like there are options out there, and if you don't show them, they're not going to be able to do it. I'm not saying that I want to do that thing, but I do think in my head, like, showing my face was originally just about, being like I feel like if the whole blog was me censored and my Instagram was censored, like I feel like people wouldn't believe that I was like a normal dude. Like I feel like being anonymous, even though it technically means you could be anybody, it also makes you anonymous, because
it makes you nobody.
And it makes it's like, and no one's anonymous, right? Like people are always just out there. You don't walk around with like
anonymous, but that's it.
Shit. Yeah.
But it's like, like that idea, and occasionally I do get some people who are like, oh yeah, like I'm also Filipino, and I'm like, I want to get into menswear, etc. And I think that that's cool, because like I do, as I said before, like it wasn't racially motivated before, but like I do think like there wasn't someone like me when I was getting into menswear, and I wish I wish that there was, because then maybe it would have been cool, like to be like, okay, not just of course now to be a sad or whatever, it's not just being Filipino. There's like a lot of like, getting boba and everything, and doing karaoke while wearing tailoring, etc. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but like there's the idea that the showing people that you can be into it is just so important. And I'm glad like people like Connor don't even have to be Asian to kind of understand that, right? Like it's just so interesting.
Yeah, it's like you
Yep.
look at TikTok, and especially like the fashion TikTok people. It's just
Mhm.
you look at it and you go, yeah, great, white people can do anything, but like, what can I do? Or like so many things. Some of these fashion guys. It's just a bunch of white guys putting on the same rotation of like a sweatshirt and some pants, right? And then you turn around, you see like on like Instagram, you see a lot of the vintage guys. It's always okay. It's always these white guys, right? White guys, white guys, white guys. And for me, when I was like looking out and like trying to learn about all the menswear stuff, it was tough. And I'm like, well, what do I do as somebody? What can I do as as someone who's brown? Because some
Right.
of this stuff just doesn't make any sense to me. The
Right.
idea, like the glorification of so much of country club life, didn't make sense to me
Right.
because like that I'm never going to be able to go into the places like that, or like I've never. Not, I mean, I can, but the general consensus of I don't belong in those places, right?
Yeah.
So it's like why so many people are fetishizing this idea of this leisure life, and it's like I didn't relate to it from a physical standpoint. I wasn't a white person interested in white fashion.
Yeah. And I think it's a fallacy. I know we put it in our notes like is menswear white, and I feel like it is white in the sense of like Western culture
Yeah,
is
for
the
sure.
dominant culture. But I think that at a certain point it just kind of becomes about anything, right? Like the whole like the B and Taylor thing I wrote about, where like, the guy was like, "Oh, look at this Asian man like forced to wear this corporate suit," but like you can like it.
Yeah,
You can absolutely like it. And I think one aspect about menswear is like obviously it's kind of uncool, like it's old man clothing, as MJ said in the podcast. But it's like I think that a lot of like Asian culture, or maybe like BIPOC cultures, that you don't want to like minstrel yourself. Like you don't want to give ammo to
You don't want to make
for
yourself
people
a
to be.
caricature.
right.
And you don't want to
And
stand out in a negative way either. And
but
I
you want
feel
to
like
recontextualize it and turn it into something else.
and right, and but the thing is, right, like with menswear, it's like since the effort is so high, like there's just a kind of a rule of cool with it, and it's so ambiguous. It's
Yeah,
like some people just don't want to make that jump, which is understandable, but all the more reason for like
super.
people to kind of get into it, to be like, okay, like yeah, you can, like look at us doing it, and I'm
Right.
sure there's plenty of people who are who are cooler than us, who could probably do a better job of making menswear look cooler, but we've just kind of relegated ourselves to the whole.
Right. We're just the public faces of it, unfortunately.
Yeah, like I mean, it's like I can't. There's not that many like Filipino people I can think of, in menswear. I know that we've had a lot of like Asian American people, like that I put in the blog post. Like you got Raymond Chu, I think is such a great example of that. Like and he's
got
so
great style.
and Sora too. I mean, Sora's like, dude, when am I gonna like? He's like, I
Yeah.
should have been on the panel.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, Sora, you're gonna get your own podcast episode. What are you talking about, dude?
Yeah,
Like,
I
you're
just
gonna.
met Sora today.
Yeah, Sora is so cool. Great example of like, again, New York culture, Asian culture, growing up here, growing up to school, like going into school in the New York public school system, like New York, born and bred, and being Asian and balancing that, like his dad's like a crazy like embroidery artisan, you
Oh
know.
shit.
Yeah, it's really cool. They just did a collaboration somewhere where he was doing like at some store, kind of like I'm not sure if it was Bodhi, but like kind of a similar kind of like men's fashion thing, and the dad was like the one doing like the handwork there. But like yeah, like I think it's really cool to kind of show shout out these guys. Not that these guys just need a shout out, but like kind of just show people that they're there,
Yeah, they
and
exist.
that
Well, that's why.
and like
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. No, I was just gonna say like I think as I look at it, there's a lot of cool. There's actually a lot of cool examples of guys wearing menswear out there.
Mhm.
There's always there's always Sora. There's always Raymond, and you got Derek and Peter at the rest of the Cozy Boys as well.
Mhm.
You got James. So I'm glad to kind of represent the dorkier side, by which I mean, as I've said before, like I'm the one who wears a tie all the time.
Mm.
So I'm glad to represent that, and show that you can be a total like Esquire man and be into this without without being super period, because I know I've met Filipino guys who are into it for the traditional reasons, because again, Filipino has a lot of this tradition and masculinity, and a lot of vintage clothing, and bespoke tailoring has that kind of like, it's kind of like baked in, you know, to this aspect of being Asian. And so to kind of go against that, again, to be into it for aesthetics sake, to be not as serious about it, to be okay with standing out in a silly way, is
that's what I find is
something
really
you can
cool
still do.
about like Asians, when you meet other Asians in it, is that most of the time, like, the menswear thing isn't their entire personality. Like, you know, so many like so the prominent figures, like the, you know, the white guys, who are just like, you know, the basic idea of menswear, you know, it's like the menswear, the Negronis, the cigars, like that's their personality. But like the Asians I've met and through most of them were just like me, just a bunch of fucking nerds.
Yeah.
That like just know how to quote unquote clean up nice.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, look at what we talk about in the Discord. We're a bunch of fucking dweebs half the time.
Yeah.
You know, like you know,
And that was
whether
cool
it be,
about, like,
you know, with anime, or, you know, and like, or talking about movies. It's like there's so much, you know,
well,
depth to like us.
this is like a bigger topic about like being alternative or indie, in the sense that you're not doing the mainstream, and not to be in like a hipster way, but there is still a not a big representation of Asian indie or alt people. And my whole thing with this is like, you know, again, why would you pick to do, like, why would you choose something that you would maybe not get ostracized about, but that would make you have difficulty in associating with your community, right? Like being the Asian guy who doesn't watch anime, like, why would you choose to do that if you know it's gonna give you a leg down when communicating with other Asians? And I know that, like, you know, like, not everyone has to be into anime, but it's like, still, why would you choose to do something that, again, puts you at a disadvantage? And it's interesting because, like, you know, my friend, like Adam, works in the film in the entertainment industry. I guess I do too. I guess I work in media, but like, again, like, you know, there's still people are still hesitant about that, because again, like, this idea about breaking from what is conventional from your ethnic group or your community, even like your immediate community, is such a big step to take. I don't know, like, Spencer, do you ever, like, again, does that ever cross your mind at all? Like being different compared to everybody else that you are associate with?
Not, I mean, it's not for reasons related to race, I'll say.
Yeah, because it's like there's no,
yeah.
yeah, because it's like this whole idea about being Asian indie is something that I've talked about with my friend Adam with. Like, there's still not a lot of people who work in media, at like being Asian.
I mean, yeah,
you know, like, that's,
I'll just say that one of the privileges of being a white guy is in daily life you don't the topic of race doesn't really come up for you a whole lot. So
yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Not really, you know.
No.
Yeah, it
But
seems odd. I
because
think you guys are always
you don't
talking
come
about
across
it.
as the quirky white guy in the room.
Everyone's
you know?
like, oh, here's White Spencer. Everyone says that
Yeah.
when I come in.
The Zoe Deschanel of the group.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, the whole thing that I've had is like, it's not that menswear is like, oh, there's Filipino Ethan, but it's more so like being odd Filipino guy in a Filipino or Asian circle. And like, that's always been kind of the weird aspect of it, because again, you're making that conscious decision. It's like, okay, like, again, when all of your friends are going to be, again, nurses or PT or work in the medical field, and then you're like choosing to be like a TV writer or something, it's like,
Yeah.
what are you going to talk about when, because like, yeah, people are perfectly capable of talking about bigger topics, but most small talk is about like work, right? And it's like, what are you going to do when you can't talk about that? Or like, for example, music, when it's like, oh yeah, you know, you talk about like, you know, and not that, again, like, not that every Asian listens to EDM or whatever, but there's still a big aspect. And there's actually,
it's so many.
like, I think there's like a New York Times thing about why EDM is so popular amongst Asian Americans. But it's like, if you chose not to do that, you know, and then you're in college trying to talk to people, make friends, and then they go like, oh yeah, what listen to? Oh, I listen to like this band you've never heard of. It's like, okay.
The Chainsmokers.
You wouldn't
Never heard of them.
Never heard
Yeah,
of James.
and it's not because it's like, I guess with like, with maybe being white, right? Like the idea that you're into something different is like a superiority thing, right? But then when it comes to this kind of contextual in this new context, you are you're gonna sell yourself short. You're putting yourself at a disadvantage. It's like, when I remember I was talking with my Filipino, like I have like two Filipino coworkers, and they work in the merch department. Like that, and it's very cool. They're into like designer stuff, and streetwear designer culture is still like, and thankfully today it's very diverse, especially in LA, right? Like, people are having these streetwear, people work in it, people design stuff. It's awesome, and there's a lot of like, if we think about like these stores, skate culture in Southern California or in LA, Latinx culture is very closely tied with like Filipino culture as well because of the overlap. Think about like Cesar Chavez, right? Like the Filipino, workers also were in solidarity with them.
Still waiting for my Larry Itliong day, but
Yeah, exactly.
that's me.
But it's like, so there's that idea there. But like, talking with them, they're not into menswear. They don't know what. They don't really keep up with like Drake's
I
or
don't know
anything.
what
And
codes are.
again, like that's not like a regular person wouldn't know what Drake's is either. But again, it's like this idea that we can't even. It's still tough for us to communicate on that kind of basic level of like clothing. Like we're into like such different styles, and so it's more like despite the camaraderie that you should have, you are still not there. And I think that's a very interesting and sometimes frustrating experience. And that's why I think it's important to know, like you're not gonna be just alone. Just like how like, for a while, like there was a lot of alt Asians, and now like I feel like so many people on TikTok and Twitter are alt Asians. There's finally people who can do that, and people can meet up. Like my friend Jen, who moved to New York, has made a bunch of like BIPOC or just Asian friends in New York just by being into the same kind of things. Compared to like this was like 10 years ago where that couldn't happen. And I feel like menswear is kind of like the same way, or at least like men's fashion. And again, and then the thing is, like once you connect on that, the other stuff kind of becomes an add-on, right? Like, oh, and we also know what it's like to have like your mom be a nurse or whatever, or and there's these kind of basic
What's
stuff that
really
we talked
funny
about.
is that my mom is white, but she's a nurse.
She's not allowed to do that.
So like I just like of course, right?
Well, because of your dad, she's allowed to do that. That's why.
Right.
Oh, there you
It's
go.
like my mom's not the Filipino one, but she's the nurse. Still got it. Still got the nurse situation.
Yeah, it evens out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think it's, I think at the end of the day, representation, not just from us, but I feel like for, I encourage everyone to kind of get into it and post too. Maybe this is why I like social media, where I like seeing people kind of just have, I call it narcissism, but just kind of like just take ownership and just like post, without feeling the need to be something else. Like, and I feel like the fact that you are Asian or a person of color, it's people already think of you like that because you already don't look white. So it's already like, it's already going to be there. So like, why not just like, just do your thing, and sometimes that like, that's just enough, and I mean, I hope there's more people into it later on. I think, based on the feedback from the episode, I think it's really great that some people were like, oh yeah, like, I also like, being an immigrant means he doesn't have like, Ivy is just cool to him. He doesn't need to have some, excuse me, this kind of context for it. And maybe someday we'll talk about how context is stupid, in terms of like why you should be into something, because I think the idea that you should be into something for a certain reason is bad and a lot less relevant the further we go along with like the internet. You know what I mean? Like, I think we've talked to like Henrik about, and this is again a bigger topic, but like before, right, to listen to like indie music, you had to like go to shows and you had to like discover these bands by like, getting mixtapes and like rummaging rummaging through like records and everything like at a thrift store. Whereas now you can be into something, differently. And I feel like debating on whether or not you are into something authentically in that way is kind of a moot point, because people just don't have that context anymore, and I feel like a lot of menswear gets more and more as the industry and the community gets more mature in terms of like the adoption curve, right? Of, like innovation or whatever. It's like at a certain point, people are just gonna get into it because they just like it. There's no you don't have to be into Drake's because you saw it on Tumblr all these years ago. Like you're gonna be able to see it on your explore page, and sometimes you're just gonna like it. You're gonna gleam off Ivy from that, and then you'll find Take Ivy, as opposed to like you know combing through old Popeye magazines and like or whatever. Like you don't have to get into it that way. And I'm always reminded of like Ambitora, where like these guys just saw it and they liked it and they did it. Yeah, they learned like the rules, but the rules on like what made it a certain garment, not like how to wear it or why it made more sense to them. I think that's it's all just clothes, and it's like you don't have to be a businessman to wear a tie.
Hobby, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you can be into Yu-Gi-Oh because card games are cool.
Yeah, you didn't
fine.
have to be there in 2006 when it was airing on WB, and you didn't have to be there for the original run or whatever. You didn't have to collect the old manga.
When the rules didn't make any sense, like you can just
someone got banned from the casino, and then they got really into Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah,
maybe
they
we need to have a whole
for what is it, like the punishment games where you can like die.
Yeah, when's the sad Yu-Gi-Oh tournament?
We have to have a sad
sad Magic the
airsoft
Gathering.
thing. No,
sad
airsoft
and then sad Yu-Gi-Oh.
I think we can combine the two. I think we can combine the two.
Hey,
somehow.
if we get enough people for a private game, we can make anything happen.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. But yeah, no, I think that getting into things is just fun, and maybe we need to have a whole episode on gatekeeping. I feel like that's kind of a big topic.
Yeah,
we're gonna close the gates. Like
we need to continue to gatekeep K-pop. White people just don't deserve it.
Yeah. Any other Kiyoshi? Any other thoughts before we watch something on YouTube to kind of end the night?
I think we should watch the Mr. Beast Squid Game, which is showing up on my homepage.
Jesus Christ.
I have no more thoughts at this time.
Yo, I hate Mr. Beast.
YouTube is bad.
All my homies hate Mr. Beast.
Click on the... Oh, never mind. I'll do it myself.
Okay.
Ranking ready-to-wear suit brands? What the heck? Well, have you...
54 best and worst? Does it mean 54 best brands and 54 worst?
There's a lot of brands.
There's 108 brands he's gonna go through. Why?
In half an hour?
What is Street Game?
Yeah, I guess you could do it in half
an
hour.
Let's take a step back and go, why?
We asked a sword expert to make a realistic lightsaber fight. I think you're gonna need
Can we do submissive and breedable explained?
I don't think
can
we can.
I looked
didn't
up
get the permission.
Did Ivan make this video?
How it isn't a train?
It's not a train.
Well, it's like
hold on. We have to. Sorry, now everyone can see what we're looking at. But
shit.
Here's the jokes, everybody.
Yeah.
Here are the jokes.
I looked up what Asian guy you are, and I got a couple of would you date an Asian man? How to tell if an Asian guy likes you?
Oh my god.
How do you? Do white girls like Asian guys?
I can confirm, yes.
Yeah.
Looking at this this homepage is pretty...
My first time dating an Asian guy, my experience...
Okay, it is really weird how
this is the downside of this Asian identity thing, where everything is about this, where it's like there's more important conversations.
Yeah, everyone's it's like a fetish.
Hey, wait,
being fetishized.
What if we did things Asian guys like? Let's watch that. Let's see how many things Asian guys like and things Asian guys hate. Oh shit, we'll find out what we hate.
Yeah, let me find out what I hate.
See.
This is
weird.
weird.
You want to first? Hit
the first
hate?
one, the like. Yeah, let's do like.
That's another thing where it's why are we? Why are they a complete separate thing?
Again, I know, when I first talked about this with Young Chomsky, I know he's oh yeah, young people, people like the category stuff, but this is so unique. Spencer, you didn't grow up with things white guys right? This wasn't a big piece of pop culture.
No,
well, hey, things white guys hate
I guess
seasoning.
the the things that would be the equivalent of this for me would be more like things that if you lived growing up like in Orange County, or things that you learn going to a Christian high school.
Regional, not ethnic based.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Really quick before we start this, I want to deal with not that we have to deal with David, but David had some stuff here. So he says he's from South Korea and he lived in California his whole life until he moved to East Asia. He's lived across Singapore, China, South Korea, and now resides in Japan. Things are much better. He had a lot of anger in his 20s. We said white people getting more workplace advantages over non-whites. That's a big thing. I mean, there's a whole thing too, right? Wasn't there like that like article came out like years ago about like how like Asian men are like the least swiped on in like dating apps, and it's true. Like there are like hidden prejudices out there,
Yeah,
and these things that people kind of identify deal with. Like Asian men are perceived as to be more feminine than other BIPOC counterparts and everything, and it's so funny because like I grew up hearing that, and yet like the Fung Bros, there's like such dudes, you know what I mean? And there was that whole Swagapino culture behind everything.
right.
Where like
I've met more white cat boys than I have Asian ones.
I mean, it's like I don't know. Like to me, it's always funny because being Asian was like so, like not macho, but like there was such this proud identity about it. Like I couldn't imagine people feeling like they weren't, accepted, or in the wider world. Of course, it's always been there. And as David says here, as an Asian living in Asia, it says feels nice to see people who look at you on advertisements on the street. That's true. I mean, again, we talked about this a little bit in the podcast. Drake's occasionally has like an Asian guy. I think it's like the same like Asian model that Ring Jacket used and everything. But it's also again cool to see a lot of it's one thing to see East Asians across stuff, and I feel like Filipinos are a little bit more brown, and we see a lot of like Indian, Pakistani models, and of course you've got Stofa, right, and who regularly uses I think he uses his own grandpa. I think I'm not sure if I read that correctly, but I think I heard like he does use someone like that in his, at least in the early lookbooks.
Well, 3 out of 5 of the Canal Street Drake staff are Asian, so
yeah. Did we ever find out if Brandon's Asian or not? No, he's not, right?
No, he's not.
At all?
I didn't ask, though. So.
Okay. Ask so I can, if he is, I can retroactively add him to the blog post.
All right, well then if he is, that makes 4 out of the 5.
Hell yeah, dude. Take over, baby.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it really is, it is cool to see it. And maybe again, when we're older, our kids will be able to just, they'll see it all the time and they won't even think about it. They'll have their own problems.
Our kids will celebrate Larry Itliong Day.
Amen.
With barongs and...
For those of you who don't know, Larry Itliong was the organizer for the Filipinos, the farm workers, and they worked
If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have Cesar Chavez Day. And I will...
Absolutely.
They're erasing our history, guys.
Yeah. Okay, so... There you have it, man. I mean, hey, also we didn't talk about this in the podcast. Now we're adding this on, but like the whole Filipinos wearing Macintosh suits, that was a big thing in the 30s, where Filipinos didn't like, the typical cut, and they liked what like the smaller, skinny Hollywood stars, like not Harold Lloyd Spencer. Who was the guy? George Raft. George Raft would wear these suits, and so they got suits made after them. They got like the pagoda shoulders, high waist, short jacket, really, and by high waist I mean like really high waist. Put some pictures of that in my blog post. But like there's this idea, again, this precedent for Filipinos and menswear is already so big, and of course Filipinos were one of the first people, along with the Chicanos, to wear the zoot suit, which is again really important. So. Filipinos menswear. I mean, there's precedent here. Just gotta look for it, and anyone can wear this shit. So, but let's find out. I want to know from 8 years ago what I liked being Asian.
What do you like? And let's find out. What you hate.
Spencer, tell me if you liked any of these things. Maybe you're honorary.
Everybody, we think about being Asian guys a lot because we are Asian guys. We came up with a list of the 10 things that Asian guys in their 20s love. How'd you come up with this list?
Hell yeah,
we just made it up. We have zero statistical evidence to back up anything we are about to say, but based on our observations, these are true.
I don't think they're 2010s Asians. They don't look
I was
pretty.
gonna
Starting off at number 10,
say,
cars. From Asian nerds to Asian thugs to every single type of Asian guy in between. Nerd thugs. They all love cars. When we were younger, it was all about Civics, Integras, S2000s, and Francine D. And then drifting got really popular.
Oh, man.
But nowadays, that whole Fortuna Rice Rocket scene is kind of played out, and Asian guys have kind of moved on to European cars, or at least Lexus.
Yeah, I was not a
or at least a
racer.
souped-up Camry. But
My
shout out
dad
to the
was
guys
a car
keeping it real
dude.
Asian with the big body JDM flush VIP style. They
My
look
brother's
like
JDM.
cars.
Number 9. Streetwear, gear, and sneakers.
Oh,
Supreme,
Big into
Obey,
Supreme and
Illis,
Obey and
Stussy,
Illis.
Hundreds,
Oh,
Undefeated, Bape,
Illis?
Staple,
remember
Nikes,
Illis?
Jordans, Retros,
Illis.
all kinds. But even if you're an
Look
Asian
at
guy
these
that's not into
sneakers,
streetwear, you're
dude.
probably still buying performance basketball shoes. The Kobe system! The new LeBrons!
What?
Number
What
8,
the heck?
Las Vegas. Vegas, baby!
yeah, they call me Vegas
Seriously,
Spencer.
if you live on the West Coast, you know at least one person a week that's going to Vegas either for EDC, a break, or just because our generation is bought into hedonistic consumers. I've seen entire groups
that's
of Asian
true.
guys argue for
kinda
2
funny.
hours straight about which hotels in Vegas gave the best
Do
cost.
Asians really
Vegas
like,
is fun, but if that's
Las
the only
Vegas?
thing you
I
can
feel like
argue
I've never-
about, you really
My
need to
grandfather
live
liked
some
Atlantic
life.
City.
Number
Understand
7,
it.
going to
Well, okay,
My
so
grandfather
Atlantic
went to
City
Atlantic
is the
City a
East
lot.
Coast Vegas.
I guess.
My grandma
There-
liked to gamble.
is there-
He's dead
you
now,
think
though,
they have?
so-
You think they have EDM at Atlantic City?
I think
No,
so.
they should though.
At one of the hotels, they have a cocktail called the Bambino, which you get a baseball signed by Babe Ruth.
Because he signed so many of them.
Does he,
No,
he's-
there's only
he's
one.
Still, he
so
signs
after
it.
they order it, after one person orders it, they take it off the menu. But no one's ordered it yet. It's very
Oh,
expensive.
okay.
Asia, or at least areas where lots of Asians live. Trust me, Asian guys like Chinatown, Koreatown, Japantown, Thai Town, Filipino Town, Asia Town, 626 Flushing, the entire state of California, and definitely
yeah,
going back to where
California
their parents
supremacy.
from, aka
Yo,
the
shut the
motherland.
fuck up.
We just want to go where everybody looks like us.
Hey,
See,
watch your
we're
mouth.
an Asian man in an Asian man's world instead
See,
of being
I
an Asian man
I
in a white
didn't
man's
have
world.
that because
Always try to keep a
the
young
way I dressed
man,
was
taking
different,
out
right? Like,
women.
so.
And plus, in
Right.
Asia, a lot of
Well, that
girls
was
get
the
bump
coolest
up
part
because
when
you're
I
American.
landed
Five
in
chicks.
Honolulu.
Number 6.
I get off the plane and I was like, oh shit, everybody looks like me here.
Everybody's
I was like, it was the coolest feeling. I was like, holy shit.
Cuddy, Kendrick Lamar, but really, we don't live the rap life. That being said, a lot of Asians are really getting into EDM nowadays, which we're really not into,
Oh, man.
but a lot of hot girls like it, so I guess you kind of have to like it.
Oh, the
Number 5,
2010s.
basketball. Man, get that out of here.
Oh, Filipinos and basketball, dude.
They
I don't
fucking
know
love
what it
that
is.
shit.
Checked it,
Eat that shit
we
up.
never said Asian guys were good at basketball. We just said Asian guys love it. I
Hey,
don't know, maybe
hey!
it's
Since
because
then,
it's
we've
cheap,
got
it's easy to
fucking,
play,
we got
there's
so many
constant
dudes
movement,
now.
quick, small area,
Clay Thompson's half black, half Filipino, right?
Rep
So
leagues there are.
Yeah, we
Nobody
have
would
two,
ever pay to
we
watch
have
these
two
leagues, but
Filipino
I'll pay
NBA
to
players
play
right
in them.
now.
6 foot and under. Number 4, cards and gambling. Asian thugs to
Like
Asian
Yu-Gi-Oh?
nerds to Asian fobs, they all love playing cards. Yeah, I don't really know if it's the usage of math or the bluffing or the belief in destiny. Even the dealers at the casino are Asian. And the last person you want to see at your poker table is
That's
someone
actually-
with the last
yeah,
name of
that's actually
Wong,
really
Kinda
Yang,
funny.
Tran,
That's a good
Win.
The heart of the
Yeah.
I
cards,
call your
man.
bluff. Number 3, gadgets and tech.
I love
If you're an
gadgets.
Yeah,
Asian
what
guy,
is-
you know you
At
gotta have
MJ.
newest phones and you gotta have a case. That's iPhone 5, Samsung Galaxy S3,
iPhone
HTC,
iPhone
any other phone. It
5.
just looks like
That's
a gigantic
crazy.
tablet. Hey, man,
And
they have
basically,
an
my
charger?
iPhone,
Yeah,
my
sure.
12
Oh,
mini
sorry,
is
I
basically
still
an
got
iPhone
four.
5
What?
Repro. I
Oh,
fucking
look,
love the
20-something-year-old
iPhone
Asian guy
5.
are you? Coming in at number 2.
Yeah, I'm excited
hating
to
on
get a
Asian
phone.
girls who don't date Asian guys. Oh,
Ooh,
yeah,
that's
he's
still a
tall
thing
and
today,
scruffy,
baby.
short and clean.
Oof.
Oh yeah, you like mixed
Yeah,
babies?
this one,
Sometimes
this is
one
the-
flavor
I don't
of
think- I don't-
Night is
the only person I
best.
ever,
You know
hit
what I'm
on-
saying?
Howie when she came in,
Man,
and she
whatever,
did
let's
not
go
like
eat
it.
some short girls.
This is-
Just kidding. I
This is the
stayed
one
so
where we
silent
also-
and so
Number
nervous when
one
she was
thing
here.
that the 20-something-year-old Asian guy loves is the idea of being rich. There is no better way to make your immigrant parents proud than to become rich. How do you become
I don't
rich?
need- I don't have
the
That's
idea
the
of being
rich, I
question.
am.
But
Yeah,
there's one
the
Asian guy
good.
say before.
I think
Dude,
this
my
has
dad
changed
knows
now.
somebody in
Now
Asia.
we've
I'm
got a
thinking
lot
about
of
moving out there.
communist
Imagine that.
Asian Americans now.
Conveyor
So
belt dim sum.
that's
Preach.
changed.
We want to
Import,
be
export,
rich.
professional poker player. I got it. The next
We will
OK
be
Cupid.
rich.
Mongolia is an
the
untapped
moon.
market. It's like Groupon, but like way better. Real estate.
What's your
Asians
design?
love houses. I'm gonna invent this iPhone app and sell it for like $1 million. Check out my new clothing line. We just got t-shirts for now. A food truck with my mom's recipes. And then I'm gonna franchise it. Then I'm gonna franchise it. And then I'm gonna franchise. Franchise.
That's
franchise.
pretty.
People
That's
do
pretty
like
real
to
right there.
franchise.
Franchise.
People do like to franchise.
Well, let's see what we hate, baby.
Okay.
Yeah.
We made a video series about Asian girls and Asian guys. Things Asian guys
What's weird is
hate.
that Asian guys don't look like this kind of. But I mean, I think more people our age.
This is the most like 2010s YouTube video.
Being the token Asian guy. What's a token Asian
You
guy?
have Bruno Mars in the background of the video.
Okay, well,
Nice.
So
I like
no, I'm saying for copyright reasons.
Oh,
When you're the only
Well, I think they're
Asian guy
talking over it,
you're
right?
really
I feel like
important,
it's
you're
like-
just there to create an illusion that there's diversity.
Dude, that's so awesome that they let you hang out with them. I bet you get to go to all
That's
the
not.
parties.
That's not.
Basically, it's for all your other
Bruno
friends to
Mars,
be able to
sorry,
say,
everybody.
sometimes
That's
I go
Bruno
to my
Mars,
Asian
of
friend's
course.
house and his mom makes
Oh my
crazy
God.
food.
With,
You
you
know
know,
you're the token Asian guy when
like
you
a
hear
Bruno
Asian
Mars would have been
language. You're like the coolest
appropriate.
Asian I know. Which basically translates into Asian guys are usually lame, but you're so not lame. Believe it or not, but we do not enjoy the fact that we are the only Asian guys that our friends can tolerate. It's a backhanded compliment. That's like saying you're pretty tall for a midget. Number 11, having a lack of role models in the media. Chances are, if you're an Asian guy who grew up in America, you do not have a lot of role models in TV or movies to look up to. Bruce Lee's been gone for 40 years. Jeremy Lin's
sorry.
not really in the
Apple
spotlight
D-App
anymore.
from the
Appiah's
Black
about
Eyed
to
Peas,
retire.
you're welcome.
And your dad, who might be a great dad, but who's probably a little
Jump
bit of
is
a
dead.
And it's kind of hard to look up the fobs, but that's a whole nother video.
Now, you might be able to find young Asian American role models online, but in mainstream media, they're still pretty bad. So growing up, a lot of Asian guys ended up relating to black guys like Jay-Z.
He's a minority like me.
True.
You hate it?
Number 10.
Being told we look like Jackie Chan.
When I was
As
growing up, the
Filipinos,
rush
we
hour
don't have
movies
that.
were here.
That's never happened to me.
As a light-skinned Filipino, I'm gonna
Do
flip
you
that.
understand the words that
Every Asian dude got called Jackie Chan, even if you didn't look a thing like Jackie Chan.
What's up, Jackie Chan?
No, Ethan, we got you look like Manny Pacquiao. That's the one.
Oh my God, Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah.
You look just like Jet Li.
Number 9. Not having the hookup. Asian guys are usually pretty good at business.
Wheeling and dealing.
Especially if your parents own their own business. We always like to think we know a guy who can get us a special hookup or deal.
You need a mechanic, baker, lawyer, insurance agent.
I know a guy. How many times have you heard an Asian guy say this? Man, I hate waiting in line at the club. Jamie will help us. Jamie, hey!
Hey, do you need
Jamie.
a new iPhone? I know a guy. Hey man, do you need
you know
a new
that
iPhone
sound
to
you've
be
been
curly? I know a
looking
guy.
for?
At the
Yeah, listen to this.
So for Asian guys who
Listen
pride
to
themselves
this.
on always having to
It's
hook
your
up on
cousin.
everything, they hate that one time that they don't. Hey uncle, I need someone who can teach me how to dunk. Do you know a guy?
Yeah, of course I know a guy. I always know a guy. You know,
I don't know a guy who can dunk. Number 8.
That is a big fail.
Not being able to order the good stuff when you're at an Asian restaurant with non-Asians. If you can even get your white, black, or Latino friends to come with you to an authentic Asian restaurant, you probably can't order all the authentic advanced dishes because they won't want to eat them. Come on, man. You know I don't eat raw fish. But this is a sushi restaurant. Number 7. Being mistaken for other Asian guys. How many times has this happened? Hello there. I have these reports for you, Phil West. Quang? Yes, whether school.
I mean,
work,
I was
sports, or
mistaken for
friends,
Tim
people
a
are
lot
always getting
and
Asian
vice
guys mixed up
versa.
for each other.
But we
It
did
kinda makes us
kind
feel
of look
unimportant.
alike.
I get
Number
mistaken
6,
for
being short. When
our
I'm
friend
around
Ian a
Asians,
lot
I feel
and vice
kind of tall.
versa.
When I'm around non-Asians, I feel short.
least in
And
high
unfortunately,
school.
there's nothing you can really do about it except make up for it with skills, knowledge, and swag.
That
What if you don't
surgery
have
where
swag?
they break your legs a bunch.
Lots of skill and knowledge. Number
And
5,
put the
Confucius.
metal rods.
Confucius?
Yeah.
I don't even know who that is. How can I hate him? You know that 2,000-year-old Chinese philosopher from the fortune cookies?
Confucius say.
He was a real person. And whether we know it or not,
We hate him. And here's why.
so if you didn't know, Confucius' teaching served as a foundation of traditional Asian culture in China, Japan, Korea, and Vietnam.
And some of that culture has been handed down to us to this day.
And his teachings did create a lot of good things.
Confucius' philosophies are also responsible for the classic Asian male stereotypes of being passive, nerdy, overly humble mama boys with no personality. Yes, blame this
Can't
bearded
relate,
guy.
He
baby.
hated
Yeah,
entertainment
Cameron,
and
that
partying,
got so
and
much
only loved
personality
If you hate the
that
fact that you're considered a failure
I have
from your
sex with
parents
women.
because you're not a doctor, lawyer, engineer, or accountant, then it's this guy's fault. He's the one who came up with the idea that Asian kids, especially the boys,
are supposed to live for their parents.
and if you're forever single and
Oh,
you can't get a
man.
girlfriend, then blame
Oh,
Confucius,
man.
because he was
You're
very
alone.
much against having that cocky, confident attitude that girls seem to love. And if your culture is from a country
That's
that's, not
kinda
affected
true,
by
actually.
Confucius, then 1, be thankful because you probably live a happier, less stressful, freer life. 2, you probably still hate all those Asian stereotypes that Confucius' teachings ultimately created.
I'm pretty glad Confucius never made it to the Philippines. I like to party.
Hey, shout outs to that.
Number 4,
Uh-huh.
being able to grow a nice, thick beard. Oh,
Can't
I can
relate,
grow a beard,
baby.
but it's more like spotty, patchy fun. And when I do try
to grow it,
Hey,
no one ever
we
seems
should
to
end this stream right
compliment
here.
it. Japanese, Filipino, and
this
Indian
guy
guys seem to have an easier time.
Man, this took me a
Call out
month.
Filipinos.
Number 3.
Yeah,
How
Filipinos
nobody
because they're
thinks Asian
fucking
guys are
Spanish.
cool, even when they do something
Yeah.
cool.
We never
Hey,
really
this
get
has
all the
changed
points of
nowadays,
recognition
thankfully,
that we
I feel
deserve.
like.
And maybe it's because we don't look like we're supposed to be cool.
Oh my god, I love this song. It's my favorite.
Hey, did you know this song's sang by 3 Asian guys? It's called Far East Movement.
Oh my god, you guys know that?
man.
Like a G6, baby.
Like a G6.
Like a
Sort of like when
G6.
you're at school and the
Popping
dorky
bottles in
cool
the
kid makes a joke
ice.
and nobody laughs, and then the popular kid
a
makes the
blizzard.
exact
Like a
same joke
blizzard.
and nobody laughs. Asian guys are kind
You
of
love
like
the
that
karaoke
dorky
in the
kid,
background?
And school is like society.
And Jeremy
As
Lin
Asian guys, no
bobblehead.
matter how you
Jeremy
look, good
Lin
looking or not,
bobblehead.
we all know what it's like
Dunk.
to be treated like the ugly girl at heart.
Or the
And you know
Jordan.
Asians are like the
Jordan
best
ones.
dancers in the world. How come there's not a lot of us in the dance movies? Underrated
Dance
and
movies.
overlooked.
Lee, great job on the project.
Listen, I am a big fan of when Lisa, Lisa dances. I'll tell you that.
Oh man.
Everyone seems to believe this, even though
Can't
they haven't
relate.
seen
Can't relate to a
Asian
small
wiener
penis. You know
in
what I'm saying,
real life.
boys?
Come on, girl.
Yeah, I
you
know.
win. You know them Asian dudes ain't packing no anaconda.
Oh.
Asian guys are kind of small.
Oh, we're getting.
That one was not
For
good.
some reason,
We're
in this
getting
country, we cannot
canceled.
stop talking about how
That didn't
small
make
I gotta head out before I get
Only in
fired.
America. It's not even a big deal in Europe. Don't be
Tell that to-
silly.
tell that to
It is
China.
not the size of
Yeah.
the brush. It
Call
is
the
in
China-
how you
call
move
China. Somebody
it.
call
A lot of people tend to believe that
I
the
wanna
bigger your
hop on.
junk is, the more confidence you
Seen
should
that
have.
on the
And
You wanna get
why
a
the amount
glizzy?
of confidence you have in your life be determined by the size of your package, I don't know.
Is this
don't
really
know
how the
either.
world works? I have a large penis. I have an average penis.
I have a small penis. A really small penis.
Yeah, I can't relate to that.
Man, I hate that
Cut that part out.
And the number one thing that Asian guys really hate, Asian girls who only date white guys. Just kidding, you knew it was gonna be number one.
Yes, there is a sizable portion
That-
of Asian women in America
yeah, who doesn't,
refuse
right?
to date Asian men and only want to date white guys. You know who I'm talking about. These Asian girls are our friends, family, classmates, co-workers, exes.
And whether it's right or wrong to hate on these girls, a lot of us can't help it. And what we really hate is the fact that these Asian girls believe that Asian guys will never be good enough for them.
And it kind of makes us feel inferior because Asian girls don't like Asian guys as much as Asian guys like Asian girls.
And once these girls decide not to date Asian guys, the dating pool is shrunk.
Hey, why don't you guys just go date girls of other ethnicities? Problem solved.
Because not enough girls of other ethnicities find Asian guys attractive.
Plus, if they know that Asian girls
That's still an
don't
issue
like
today.
Asian guys, that's not
That's
a
I
good
don't think that's really an
endorsement.
And
issue.
Asian guys are
And
definitely
Well,
not
I
known
think
by
they're
being
still-
narrow-minded
they're
and only wanting to date
they're
Asian
still
white
the
female
dating
Asian
world.
male,
of their
baby.
same ethnicity. Talk about limited options. Damn.
We're on different websites.
Okay, I don't know.
Quadruple whammy.
Shout out to all those non-Asian girls who like Asian guys.
Now you know.
Yeah, you know Asian guys
Asian
hate.
guys hate. My
a little bit
goodness.
intense. We know.
What
but,
a
we hate
trip
lot of
down
things.
memory
If you made it
lane,
through this video, you're probably
know?
thinking one of these two
Yeah.
things. Gosh, it does
They might want to
suck to be
delete
an
this
Asian
before they
guy.
get canceled.
We got
I'll tell you
bad
that.
cards, bad cards.
I mean,
Or you're thinking,
they haven't been
Wow,
in
stop
2014.
whining, man up, and grow some balls.
Yeah, that's true. Good for them.
Weak Asian
I'm
dude
an
with
Asian
inferiority
guy, and I feel more
complex.
confident after reading
either
these
way,
comments.
everyone's gonna have their own perspective.
K-pop has set a
Thank
high
you. Didn't hate a single thing on this list. Good
What
for
was-
you.
what's
Keep
the
on
K-pop
doing it.
one?
And if you do hate a lot of the things
Why
that
not?
you're
Wait,
not
wait.
alone, and there's a lot
K-pop
of guys
has
in the
set
same
a
boat.
seriously
And if
high
you wanna
standard
stop
for
hating
me.
these things,
I
then
want a
you-
man who can sing, dance, rap, is adorable, intelligent, and is hot. Luckily, no one wants to date me, so no one has to try and live up to those standards.
Jesus.
Ugh,
R.I.P. in every sense of the word.
Is
Yeah.
that is this
No,
a femcell comment?
Yeah, is
Yeah,
this
that's-
yeah. Shout
This
out,
one
shout
makes
out,
me uncomfortable too.
5
I
years
love it.
ago,
Yeah.
the
I
K-pop
love
was
it.
fucking
Here.
Gangnam Style.
I
Is
love
what-
Asian guys, hot or not. Just the fact he looks Asian makes me fall over. See, now that's where it
that's
starts to get a
fetish.
little. Yeah,
That's-
I
a
honestly
little-
feel I
that's
should wear a
what-
shirt or something. I heart Asian.
Oh,
guys.
look at this! Look at this femcell stuff right here. I feel like the Asian guys are not interested in me. I'm a.
You just see like all the women
Hey,
that
as a guy who for some reason went through a thing where like only Latina girls match with me. You know, it's out there, baby.
I'm Russian and I love Asian men. They have a beautiful nature.
You can't say it like that, Spencer. You gotta say it like the right way.
I'm Russian.
There you go. There it is.
Canceled.
Okay.
Here we go. Here's one. I
For
love
the official
Patrick.
record.
He was so smart. He taught me so much.
He was so smart. What is their picture? I did the low res picture of like King Arthur or whatever is hysterical.
I don't know why. Man, this is some interesting comments.
Yeah, I mean, YouTube 7 years ago was like...
With the wild, wild west.
Yeah. All my life, I want to find the perfect Asian guy. I feel so attractive. They're so cute.
That's weird.
Yeah.
I love Asian guys like OMFG. OMFG.
Yeah, but what's the... We got Snapchat? I don't.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean,
Asian
yeah,
men-
if you're like... I feel like I can't... He's extra yummy and fine. I'm worried about looking
If you're
at
a
the image
white woman
photos.
that loves Asian men, Ethan's DMs are open.
Yeah, well,
Mine are
you
open.
need to,
Mine are
you need to,
open.
like,
MJ's
I'm
DMs
you
are
have
open.
you have their fucking
Girlfriend, I have a
Gmail
girlfriend.
accounts right here. Just like
All platforms.
For
email
real,
them.
guys, you are the sexiest on earth. My sister is a proof. Wait, go back. She goes insane every time she sees an Asian guy.
She goes
Yo,
insane.
give her
Asian
MJ's.
as
What's the
well.
ad for MJ? We gotta give her the ad for MJ.
Yeah.
We put our ads on the screen for a reason, guys.
Yeah.
See. Okay.
If you're
hold on.
any race or any woman,
Here's
and
a
you
weird
like
problem.
Asian men, MJ is open and
Here's a problematic one here.
Platform.
So it's like
he
my
will fly
boyfriend
to
is
you.
my boyfriend is Cantonese. I love him so much. He's talented, hardworking.
Of course, he's
generous,
hardworking.
funny, intelligent, and handsome. I mean, I guess hardworking is good. It's a good compliment, but like,
Yeah, I mean that's
yeah,
just
you know,
the-
hardworking. Those hardworking Asians. You know, it's like,
The classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Built this country, baby.
yeah. Where would the
You
trains
see
go,
those
apparently?
railroads?
You see those railroads that Ivan loves so much? You're welcome.
You're welcome.
When you guys showed Far East Movement, I instantly fangirl. Those guys are awesome AF. That was only 3 years ago. A person said awesome AF 3 years ago.
3 years ago about Far East movement.
That's kind
Yeah.
of crazy.
Like this is crazy, man. Like
Man,
it's-
I remember being at this girl's sweet 16 birthday party, and like a G6 came on. The 50 people that were at this party at her house went insane. I was included in that. Great song.
I hope
So-
I was 16.
I saw this recently where like Sorry Studio is like a Filipino like art collective or something like that, and they did something at like the really expensive, really like high end Japanese restaurant in the Hollywood Hills, and it was like a celebration of Filipino culture. It's more streetwear, and it was like done by Nike. And I saw a clip where they played bebot, and the entire thing was like crazy. And for those of you who don't know, it's a song by the Filipino guy in the Black Eyed Peas.
Apple
And,
D App.
Yeah,
Apple D
that's another thing. I don't think we talked about that. How like specifically Filipinos just latch onto anything.
If
remotely
anyone
related to
is even a
Filipino.
part Filipino, you're Filipino to me, man. Like that's
That's
I
why we
I
love
don't-
Olivia Rodrigo. She's our Pinay princess.
yeah.
That's what I was gonna say, man. We're breaching the mainstream now.
Yeah.
That is I think one of the big things that makes like Filipino culture I think a little bit different than like some of the other Asian immigrant cultures, because like as soon as someone is like a part something, it's like you're automatically full Filipino. Like Nicole Scherzinger, who is like a quarter or something Filipino, and like
Yeah.
you know
I'm
whatever,
just
no,
as
you're full.
Filipino as her.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or you have like Lea Salonga, who is like the Filipino singer, you know, who has like
Mhm.
sung for like 4 Disney princesses.
Mm.
You know, the singing voice.
Yeah.
It's like that's it, baby.
When
You
I
know,
found out
like,
Olivia Rodrigo was like Filipino as well, I was like, "Holy shit!" I said, "We won, right?
Or
We just
yeah.
won."
No,
I said, "We just won, right?" Like,
What's her name? Miss Universe. She's like, I found out that she's only half, but like she looks like really
Of course,
Filipino, though.
of course, she's only half. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
her Miss
guess
Universe.
guess the mix, Ethan. So
Is it like-
so her mom's the Filipino one, but guess the dad.
German.
Yep. Yeah. There you go.
wow.
See, I knew it. It's like right there. You know. But yeah, no. So, man, being Asian, baby. Look at all this stuff. Look at it. Asian Australians versus Asian Americans. You've got 18 types of Asian girls. That was 6 years ago. Things Asian parents do, number 9.
Cha-cha slide.
For
That's one of the
Asians.
best SNL sketches, though. By the way,
Oh yeah, that's the John Mulaney one,
with
right?
John Mulaney
Yeah.
doing the cha-cha slide, like the extended version that he just knows by heart. But yeah, thank you guys for joining us this evening about talking about race. I think it's fun. I think it's kind of important to talk about, especially as we've had an interesting year for Asians the past 2 years, I guess. And it's. I hope that this was interesting. I hope the whole walk through memory lane with the Fung Bros was funny. I guess.
I liked it.
Yeah, no, I'm sure I'm gonna watch some more for this. But yeah, listen to the full podcast episode. We're a little bit more focused there. We know there's Jason on there, but Aldous, Ethan, Spencer, and MJ on all podcasting platforms. There's an essay I wrote that goes along with it that kind of goes on. Well, I talked about it a lot here today, but if you want to read more about it, you can go on the blog a little bit of rest.com, and of course see some pictures of other Asian Americans, Asians in other homeland countries who are in the menswear industry, working in it, enthusiasts, etc. It's all in there, so hopefully you find that interesting. Who are we thanking? Because for those of you who don't know, we have a Patreon Discord.
Of course we do. It's the best place in the world.
That's right.
The happiest place on
Patreon.com/Sound
earth.
Direction. Yeah, you can join it. $5 a month gets you access to our Discord where we talk about a lot of things. Lots of talk about new purchases and all that kind of stuff. We discuss, we can talk you into buying something. We can talk you out of buying something. We're all here. It's the best place for it, and we've got a wealth of knowledge, not just from us, but from all the other great patrons who contribute. But a special shout out to the $10 tier, where basically for those extra $5, we just thank you 3 times a week, or I guess not really 3 times. I guess twice, at least twice, kind of, and
Twice
for some weeks, yeah.
Yeah, for some weeks. Sometimes we end our gaming stream, we totally forget. But MJ,
Yeah.
who are we thanking?
We are thanking our Sadcast fanatics, Austin Malat, Shane Curry, Philip Gregard, Audrey Jessica, Jarrett Collian, and James Devanzo.
Thank you.
We appreciate
so much.
you guys.
We love you all.